The reason they like reading my stuff is that I've always got real life examples to prove what I'm saying.
There's a lot of good people that listen to this podcast.
Other than God and my family, deer hunting would be next in line on my list of priorities.
From the bottom of our hearts, it's just fantastic and awesome to have the support that you guys are getting.
People ask me about expandable broadheads and love swings.
Chasing Giants with Don Higgins and Terry Peer. Brought to you by Osseo Camo, nature's most lethal camouflage. Follow along as Don and Terry discuss the techniques, strategies, and dedication needed to harvest one of God's most amazing creations, world-class whitetails.
Well, welcome everyone to the Chasing Giants podcast with Don Higgins and Terry Peer, brought to you by Osseo Gear. And it is, I believe, episode 123 at the end of June, June 26th, Don, and Velvet season's here. One of the most looked forward to times of the year for us.
Absolutely. I'm ready to get some cameras out. I started messing with my cameras yesterday, putting batteries in them and testing my cell cameras, make sure they're connecting right and working good. So this week I'll probably get started a little bit, since next weekend I'm going to be spending part of my weekend with you doing the Lester's feet drawing.
Yep.
So that takes one day out of my weekend, but for a great cause. And so I may get a jump ahead of that a couple days putting cameras out.
So let's talk a little bit about cameras itself. So I did the same thing. I know a lot of people leave their cameras out all year long. We talk about how we pull them and start putting them back out about this time of year. I did the same thing. I'm looking at mine over on the table right now. I'm actually cutting back a number of cameras this year because I don't have kind of scouting properties. We gave up all of the lease properties that we have together a couple years ago, and slowly starting to, replace some of the cheaper cameras that I have. But I'm curious, Don, how many Energizer lithium batteries did you stockpile up before the season started?
Well, I placed an order probably 2-3 months ago, and that order was over $800 in batteries. And that won't get me through the season, but I easily use $1,000 of batteries a year, and that's not counting the the fee for running cell cameras.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I'm probably spending easily $1,500 to $2,000 a year just running the cameras, not counting the cost of the camera.
Right. So I just got in a shipment of 300. I actually found a really good deal on them. But a lot of people have been sending us messages about, cellular, especially running, solar panels and 12 volt external batteries. And I think you've played around with the solar, and in the right area, that's a great option for people that are, especially with cell cameras, that, keeps you from going in there changing batteries so much.
Yeah, in the right situation, it's fine. Now, with that said, I'm running about 50 cameras, and I got 2 of them that are, have cell chargers on them.
Yep.
It's just not everywhere you can hang a cell charger and have it out in the sun and just out of the reach of critters where they're not going to get it. And I've got 2 places on my home farm. I'm probably going to add a couple more on the home farm for security reasons. And on other properties, I'm not going to use them. And the other big thing that I don't like about it is those cell chargers are so visible. I mean, you can hide a camera pretty easy, but when you get a cell charger that's the size of a car battery and you try to hang it in a tree or on a post and then run wire to your camera, well, anybody that comes by is going to see that. And I like to be just a little bit more incognito than that.
I experimented around with some motorcycle batteries or 4-wheeler batteries this year in a ammo can or dry box, running the 12 volt adapter up the side of the tree. And I had really good luck with it. I'm going to be doing more of that this year. When you do the math, and these lithium batteries are pretty pricey, And I've bought so much ammo over the years in ammo cans that I have a bunch of those plastic ones. So for the right situation where I don't need to put my cell camera way up in the air, it's a little bit lower, like if I have it on a fence post or something like that, where I can coil that wire up around the post itself and set it in the weeds at the bottom. That's a really good option for people. I had one run 2 cell cameras the entire year or the entire season last year. But there's other situations like you said. If we need to put our um, camera up high, the cord's not going to be indefinite, 10 feet long or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I do have one elevated box blind here in Kentucky that I always put a cell camera. I got one of those screw in Cranford Manufacturing makes them. They donated to the Lester's Feet auction. I screwed one of those into the side of the blind, and I can point it out to a very specific area, and then I put the battery box inside the blind and just ran it in, snaked it into the window, and that works fabulous. So
That's a great idea.
battery bills are very, very expensive. So
Mm-hmm.
hope everybody's able to hide those from their wives if they're buying a lot of them.
Yeah, if you're gonna run a bunch of cameras, it's not cheap for sure.
Right. So I think, did you want to give us an update about your plots? Did you finally get some rain this week?
We did, I did something that I've never done before, and last night I planted plots in the dark, and so I've got a NutriCrave corn plot, and we have not had a good rain on it since I planted it a month ago. And it came up fantastic in some areas, but I had a couple of like clay knobs, I'd call them, little rises in the field where the soil's not quite as good and it's really dry. Well, the corn was real spotty on those dry knobs. So I had my John Deere 7000 planter hooked up to the tractor, and I got some grain sorghum seed from Dwayne up at Kitchen Seed, and I had that planter ready to go. Well, sorghum, you can plant it later in the year. You can plant it in July, and it's fantastic.
Right.
It's compatible with a lot of the same herbicides that corn. That was my issue, was I'd put down that Resicor as a pre-emergent for that corn, and I had to find something compatible. So anyway, I had the tractor ready to go, and last night I get a text from Calvin Hurtis, who I know listens to the podcast, and he sent me a screenshot of the radar. It says, "Looks like you guys are finally going to get that good rain you're needing," and it was about 9 o'clock at night, and I jumped up and I started checking all the different weather apps, on my phone, and I seen that he was right. We was going to get a rain, and I told my wife, I said, "I'm going to plant plots," and she looked at me like I was nuts. And I ran out and got on the tractor in the dark and ran back there and patched in some places in that corn with the grain sorghum. And I got back in the house probably about 10 o'clock or so, and then took a shower, went to bed. At midnight, I get woke up by this driving rainstorm hitting the bedroom window. I couldn't have timed it any better. Within 2 hours of me doing that, it was getting a nice soaking rain, and we got 1.1 inches. So
Very nice.
our plots needed it.
Well, will not be the first or the last time Robin, your wife, thinks that you're plumb crazy with the stuff that you do for chasing these critters.
She knows it by this point.
So, as far as the rain on your side, I'll be honest with you, I have not been back to my place since I sprayed. So I did not go back to the farm all week. I just even rolled in here today. I almost called you last night to see if you wanted to record last night. I'm glad I didn't. You would have been in the tractor. But
At 9 o'clock, I was, yeah.
we've been at a ball field all weekend, and I literally just rolled in the door here and took a shower and came down to record. So, for those people listening and watching on this one, I assure you, if I was going to pick a week that I wasn't up for recording and I was wore out and we were going to skip one, it would have been tonight. So I apologize in advance. The post-production editing will probably not be, let's just say, on my top-notch execution tonight. So,
Well, you got a good excuse. For those listening, Terry was at a softball tournament with his girls' softball team, and they won the championship. So he's been at 3 games today, 3 games yesterday, and then played Friday night as well. So his whole weekend's been dedicated to coaching those girls. And congratulations on the win.
Yeah. The game of softball has gotten to the point it's almost as bad as social media. There's a bunch of just absolute quacks that are just makes you shake your head that people treat umpires, teenage kids, and coaches the way they do. But I am absolutely blessed to have a wonderful group of 10 young women that I've had, most of them since they were about 9 years old, and fantastic parents that will not they will not waver on the integrity of how we are trying to mentor these kids using a game to promote poor sportsmanship, bad attitudes, or anything negative. So I'm very, very lucky to have. I told one of the parents, when you can win a championship with that kind of kids and those quality of parents and do it the right way, it's really something special. So I'm really proud of them. But I need a break. So I haven't even told you this. This 4th of July weekend, it's actually in the state of Kentucky, it's dead period. So that means that any coach that coaches high school athletics cannot be around any high school athletes for 2 weeks in the summer. And then the rule is designed just to keep these, crazy coaches from going all year round and never giving kids a break. So we're shut down and giving the kids a break, letting families take vacations. And my family is going crazy with other activities except me. I don't have anything to do for the next 2 weeks except for Lester's feet. So I got the harebrained idea. I'm jumping in the truck, and Austin Razor and I are driving to Destin, Florida on Tuesday morning early to go deep sea fishing.
Really?
Just to get away. So
Well,
we're taking a boys trip down to the Gulf and going to chase some giants off the shore of Destin. So if we got any
good deal.
listeners that are vacationing in Destin this coming weekend, send me a message on social media. I might have an open spot on our charter boat if you're interested in going deep sea fishing with us. So we should have a good time.
Well, you need a break, and I'm glad you're getting one.
I'm not a big fisherman, but I do enjoy offshore fishing in the Gulf. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
All right. Well, outside of that, why don't you've picked 5 really good questions. I'm going to try to get to all of them tonight, but why don't we go ahead and get the first one out of the way after we hear a message from our primary sponsor, our friends at Osseo Gear.
Osseo Gear introduces a premium line of bow hunting gear that is unmatched, pairing nature's finest camouflage with the best technological innovations. Osseo Gear brings whitetail bow hunters the gear they need to be the best at their craft. The unique camouflage mimics the intricate feather pattern of North America's greatest predatory creatures. Designed for invisibility, built for comfort, and engineered for function. Visit OsseoGear.com. That's ASIO Gear.com to start shopping. Osseo Gear, prepare to be invisible.
All right, Don, I'm going to share a screen for our first question of the night.
Okay, the first one comes from Dustin from Russellville, Kentucky. He says, "Hi, Don and Terry. Love the podcast. I know you have talked about this some, being you hunt Ohio, which is a bait state as well. But my first question is, I live in a bait state and all my neighbors bait, so I feel like I need to do the same or they have all the deer. So I normally just dump it out on the ground. What's your thoughts on that versus using a feeder to feed the deer? Also, will a feeder spook a mature buck or not? Also, what are your thoughts on putting out mineral versus just supplemental feeding? Should I be doing both or is one enough? And the last question is, will it hurt to hunt over the bait, or would you recommend baiting off to the side so the deer don't associate that with hunters possibly?" Terry, you might have to keep me on track here with all these questions. Let's see. First of all, supplemental feeding versus baiting, 2 different things. Pouring a pile of corn out is not supplemental feeding. that's baiting. If you're going to supplemental feed, that means you're trying to provide those deer with additional nutrition, not just something to bring them into a location for a trail camera or a hunting opportunity. So I'm a big proponent of supplemental feeding. I do it on my Ohio properties. Um, Try to do it year round. I'm not a huge fan of hunting close to those feeders. I use those feeders like you mentioned. If you're in those states where it's allowed, if you don't do it, your neighbors are going to have the deer. I put those feeders around the edge of my food plots. I try to provide sizable plots that have some drawing power. And then to add to that drawing power, I put feeders around the edge. I don't like pouring that feed out on the ground. It just invites mold as well as a lot of other critters like raccoons, squirrels, whatever. I prefer a gravity fed feeder that feeds down through a tube where the deer just stick their nose into it. In regards to mature bucks, when that feeder first gets put out, I'm sure that a buck is very, very cautious about it, and probably the first time that he associates that with a hunter, somebody in a tree stand nearby, he's going to be very tough to kill around a feeder. Um, but I think if a buck grows up around feeders, if when he's a fawn, he's following his mother to a feeder, and they're feeding there. I don't think it's going to spook them whatsoever until they associate that human factor with it and the danger, nearby. So I don't think it has that big of impact on mature bucks, depending on how you use them. If I was lived in a state where I was, doing this on a more regular basis than what I am as a non-resident of my Ohio properties, um, I would use those. I would set them up very similar to the way I would hunt a food plot. I would hunt between the bedding and the food, not right on top of either. Now, when it comes to mature bucks, you're a whole lot better off to be closer to the bed than the food. But the other thing you need to think about is whether you're using those feeders as a bait or for supplemental feed. To help the nutrition and the health of the herd, you need to put something in it that's different than your neighbor. If your neighbor is using shelled corn, I'm telling you what, I've said this, I don't know how many times on this podcast, and I can't believe nobody's jumped on it yet. If I lived in Kentucky or Ohio, one of those states, I would be planting a field of NutriCrave corn, and I'd be harvesting that corn and storing it up to put in the feeders, because I guarantee you those deer are going to come to that before they do regular shelled field corn.
I'm doing it.
Are you growing some NutriCrave to put in feeders?
Yeah,
That's a fantastic idea.
Yep, we bought a grain bin. We put enough out that we have it on a separate farm outside of where I hunt that we're putting it up to feed with.
Well, I think somebody could make a business out of it, really. I mean, if you had that feed or that corn in your feed, there is no doubt whatsoever the deer are coming to it before they're going to come to regular ag corn.
Well, I appreciate Dustin's questions because he's really trying to. I think the thought process that he's using about what type of feeder, where do I put it, how do I hunt around it, he's going the extra mile to just say, instead of walking out there 2 weeks before the season and dumping 200 pounds of corn on and then hunt over it. I think I've had multiple 6 and 7 year old deer that are here on my wall in the room I'm in right now with pictures eating out of a feeder. But I think another key point to that is these guys that go out and just do it right before the season starts. That's the red flag. If that feeder's there all year round and you're doing it for long-term nutrition, those deer are getting used to you coming in feeding that deer. They pattern you before you pattern them. And even though there's an association of humans there, that being there all the time, all year round, is something positive that you're leaving. So I think you can do it and get away with mature bucks. Now, are you going to put a feeder out with NutriCrave corn and pull a 7-year-old booner off the neighbor's farm onto you the first night you put it out? Probably not. I don't know. Maybe, depending on the deer. But I think a steady regiment that's the same all year round is going to help your cause. The other thing that I think people, you don't spend as much time obviously in Ohio, and I'm from here. I look at how people hunt feeders in the state of Kentucky, and the biggest mistake people make when they're hunting over a feeder or over feed is they have no way to get out. How many times in early season do these deer come out right at dark and you're hunting over that feeder, and now you got to get out of your stand or your box blind? How are you getting out? You're blowing those deer out. So Patrick Simpson, our mutual friend, he's my neighbor and hunting buddy here. He's probably one of the best I know at putting his supplemental feeding areas in specific spots, and him being able to hunt an access point between the bedding and that feed. So even he might have to stay in a half hour late, but he's not blowing those deer out because they're making a steady walk towards the feed. But I can't tell you how many people I see that, have a ladder stand right over a feeder, and I'm sure it fills up with a bunch of does, and the bucks are probably staging up not too far away, and they're getting down out of the stand and blowing everything out of the field. I think that's the biggest mistake people make.
Mhm. Well, there's no doubt that you've got a way more experience with feeders than I do, but there's also no doubt that you and Patrick both have tagged some giant bucks in Kentucky where you can feed. So you guys are doing something right.
Yep, it's a I understand where he's coming from about, feeling like you have to do it to compete with the Joneses. But at the same time, that neighbor of yours that's throwing shell corn out is probably not concerned about the overall health of your herd either. So I think you need to focus on what you need to focus on, and whether you think it's right to hunt over that feeder or hunt 200 yards from that feeder, or that's up to you. But I think if you're doing it, you need to do it smart to where you at least have a way out, and run it all year. Do it for the benefit of the herd.
And that brings up a question that I neglected to answer that Dustin asked, and that is, should he be feeding and using mineral? And absolutely, he should. Um, there's I preach diversity of food sources a lot, and there's going to be trace elements in that mineral that the deer may not be able to get from their feed, probably won't get from their feed, at least in adequate levels. So I absolutely am a proponent of supplemental feeding and supplemental mineral where it's legal.
Well, and I don't want to get off on too big of a tangent here, but I got to vent a little bit. If you're going out to buy your supplemental feed this year, or your corn, or your trail cameras, or your batteries, I'm going to urge all of our listeners to keep driving by Dick's Sporting Goods and Sports, or Field and Stream, and not give 1 ounce of your money to those corrupt bigots that would dare to post out on there that they're going to donate $4,000 to anybody who wants to go across state line for an abortion. I know a lot of people do not like us bringing up politics and venting on this kind of stuff, but here's a chance for outdoorsmen to really stand up for something. And with as many people that yell "Let's go Brandon" at the end of these questions that they submit to us, I think people got to draw a line somewhere. And I saw that. I didn't see it till today, actually, and it made my stomach sick.
Yeah, I was gonna, I almost put in our notes for this podcast the Roe v. Wade decision, and I left it out. It was all I could do to leave it out because my angle is very similar to what you just brought up, Terry. But you know what disappointed me was that the few posts that I seen from influential people within the hunting industry on that decision, it was like it didn't even happen. That now there was a few that made comments and positive comments, supporting that decision. But if I think you and I have already made the decision, if somebody we stand for good when in the battle of good versus evil, we're going to stand on the side of what's right every time. And if somebody can't tolerate our 5-minute little rants here and there, then they're probably on the wrong podcast. But we've got some fantastic listeners that support what we do, and we've received so many comments that people like to hear our views on, our Savior's salvation and also on politics. So every once in a while, I think we need to go off.
Yeah, I mean, I had somebody today say something, well, are you going to ban Google and are you going to ban Apple and you're going to ban Amazon? Maybe. I'm going to try to give as much money as I can to small business owners in my community that are investing and sponsoring. I made a post not too long ago about I took a video around my kids' high school softball field and had all these banners up there of these companies that had donated money to sponsor our youth. And yeah, if I have the choice and the ability to buy something from them over Amazon, you bet I am. And I can guarantee you one thing. I will not spend another dime at Dick's Sporting Goods. It made me sick. It made me mad. And I thought you made a fantastic post, I believe, yesterday or today about how a good gauge of what kind of church and congregation you go to is how the minister actually spends it. And I think that's true. We have such a lot of great men and congregations and leaderships that this was a huge win for our country and the Christians in this country. I think Trump is going to always end up going down as a very controversial president, but I now put him at the top of the list because what he did to get that Supreme Court justice in there before these liberals got there was a great thing for our country and the morality of our country. So that's all I got
Amen.
to say about that.
Make America great again.
Let's take just a quick minute and give people some housekeeping items for Lester's Feet. So the people listening on Sunday night late, early Monday, know that Monday, the 27th, is the last day that you can buy tickets online. We will close ticket sales on the 27th. So make no mention, we're getting people calling right now saying, I didn't get my check in the mail. What can I do? I can't deviate from this, people. There's no friends with, I know Don and Terry, I'm sending my check. We are complying to gaming laws and raffle regulations, and ticket sales will be shut off tomorrow at the end of the day. Now, what's going to happen next week is we're going to record the podcast and do a live drawing. I believe we said 3:00 Eastern time on July 4th. Is that right, Don?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll advertise it. So we're going to broadcast it on Don's Facebook page. Don Higgins Outdoors is where it will be, and then the video will be uploaded on YouTube later that evening. So for all the people that are calling and saying, "Did you get my check?" We don't know. Robin, Don's wife, is helping me on that end. I'm doing it here. We are madly putting in all the checks that are coming in. You do not get tickets sent back to you necessarily. So don't worry about it if you didn't get it. All the checks that we get in will be logged. And then we'll draw names next Monday at 3:00. Someone is going to win a brand new Chevy truck. Somebody's going to win a pole building, and somebody's going to win a new tractor and 72 other prizes. But we will contact you the week after the drawing and make arrangements to get it to you. So again, the 27th is the last day, and I can't wait to tell everybody how much money was raised. We're going to be able to help so many families, and I know the raffle. We talked to Chris Yates at Victory Chevrolet, and those guys really get it. They both last year, Midwest Land Group and Victory Chevrolet wrote very big donations to Lester's Feet last year. But they talked about the parable in the Bible where, Jesus took the few fish and the few loaves of bread and he fed all of those people, the multitude of people that were there. And really that's their goal with this, is take one small thing that they could have just donated the money anyway and made it blow up to get so much more attention. So, multiplying that gift, it's really special that those guys have believed in us, become such good friends, and we really appreciate them helping us get this off the ground. But I'm excited about next week at 3:00 on July 4th.
Yeah. So those folks who listen to the podcast late Sunday night, Monday morning, you won't find it next week. It'll be in the afternoon. It'll be a live broadcast. So we'll see you then.
Yeah, so we'll be uploading it Monday night, and you'll be able to listen to it Monday night, Tuesday morning next week.
The Lester's Feet Foundation is a 100% volunteer, nonprofit organization whose sole mission is to help families with sick children. The impact on families who have children with life-altering illnesses can be devastating and often requires one or both parents to be away from work. Through our fundraising efforts and the help of our generous donors, Lester's Feet works with families to help alleviate the financial burdens associated with caring for their children through such a challenging time. 100% of donations and fundraising profits go directly to the families we are supporting. We are excited to announce that Solid Rock Chapel in Sullivan, Illinois is supporting our foundation by hosting a huge raffle with $150,000 worth of prizes, including a new Chevy truck, a John Deere tractor, a material kit to a post frame building, and much more. The drawing will be on July 4th, 2022, so please visit us at www.lestersfeetfoundation.org to purchase your raffle tickets and learn more about our organization.
All right, so let's move on to question number 2. I'm sorry, I'm lagging on my screens here. You should be able to start seeing it come up right now.
All right, this question comes from Ryan Norton from Florence, Kentucky.
Ryan's a neighbor.
Yeah?
Ryan lives really close to me.
Well, good deal. This might be a question for you to answer. He says, Don and Terry, just want you guys to know I have great respect for the both of you. Thanks for all you do through the podcast. Don, this one is for you, and it's about trail cameras. I have heard you say many times that you want to support a good company that does the right thing by its customers. On episode number 23, you talked about how great the Reconyx trail cameras are, but you were so fed up with their customer support that you were pretty much done with them.
I remember
you had sent them a dozen emails about a product issue and had gotten no response. You were so done with them that you started a series of trail camera tests to see what brand of camera you were going to switch to. And you were going to share those results with us on the podcast as well. I know you are an honest, straightforward guy, and I was curious, is Reconyx a company that is going to stand behind their product now? We all know how important the intel is we gather with these cameras and know how expensive they are. What changed in your mind to stick with them so much so that you now sell their products on your website? Thanks again for all you guys do, and let's go, Brandon. Ryan. Well, Ryan, I picked your question for a couple of reasons. I think all the listeners deserve to hear an answer, but I also wanted to make a point that we don't dodge tough questions around here. You put us on the spot. We're not like the rest of the hunting industry. We're going to run and hide, and we're going to ban you from our page or whatever. We'll take the tough questions along with the easy ones. The issue with Reconyx first of all, their cameras are top notch. I did the test as you mentioned, and I have not been able to find another camera that even comes close to Reconyx. I am aware, I'll just let you folks in on a little secret that's not out yet. I am aware of a new trail camera company in the works. Name hasn't even been released yet. That some of the things that's been mentioned to me will blow away anything that's out there right now. And I'm not going to share any of the details because they were shared to me in confidence. But there is a company that's going to come after Reconyx in terms of quality of the cameras. But today, the reason I'm still using Reconyx is I can't find anything that even comes close. And when you're hunting world-class bucks, you just cannot afford to miss a picture opportunity. And you can post on the internet and you can say, which trail camera is the best, and you're going to get a dozen different answers, if not 20. And everybody that at Answers is going to swear up and down that their $100 China camera is the best out there. Well, I'm here to tell you that the cameras made in China are worthless. They just are. I mean the components are second rate compared to American made products, and they just don't stack up. Now that doesn't mean that those cameras cannot take a good picture, and that's what people get all hung up on. They see a nice, crisp, clear picture taken by one of these $100 cameras, and they just think, oh, this is great. Look at these great pictures I'm getting. Yeah, well, you know what you don't realize is how many pictures you are missing. And I've tested a lot of different brands side by side next to Reconyx. And you'll hear people say, well, that's not a good test. That's not the way you got to test it. Well, I don't care. It's fair. In my eyes, it's fair. I mean, you got two cameras pointed the same direction right next to each other. How can that not be fair? It's the same, set of circumstances for each camera. But anyway, I have yet to find a camera that will have 50% of the deer pictures that a Reconyx has. Think about that. The very, very, very best other brand of camera is not even 50% of Reconyx. And Reconyx has the best battery life. They got the best trigger. They've got the longest battery life, but it's not even comparable. So I just can't take a chance chasing these big bucks. Now, the reason I was upset with the Reconyx company is because I had sent them dozens of emails that were just ignored and not replied to. But I'll tell you what, because of you listeners of this podcast, because of you guys telling Reconyx about me bashing them, Reconyx now treats me a whole lot different than they did before. And I think from what I've heard from others that their customer service is pretty good. But I guarantee you they've got a new policy about answering emails than what they had 100 episodes ago, back on episode 23.
Well, there's 2 points I want to make here. The one is Don and I usually aren't too filtered, and we're not real trained professionals when it comes to this whole podcasting gig. So it's not uncommon for us to pop off about something, obviously. And truth be told, we've never been offered any sponsorship from Reconyx, and that's probably part of the reason why. But that's okay. I do think that we were probably a little harsh the day that we went off on them because both of us had a problem. Probably could have been a little more tactful, but at the same time, we're real people. We apologize and accept the fact. I'm not sure what episode it was, Don, but shortly after that episode where we said that, after Reconyx reached out, you actually set the record straight and said that they had heard about it. They reached out and we tried to make it right. We said we were frustrated. We vented about it, but they did contact us and we haven't had any trouble since. So if nothing else, if we created change in procedure, policy, what have you, to help them improve the customer service, I don't know. But since that episode, it's been pretty good for both of us. And the other key point there is you were actually a dealer for him prior to episode 23. It wasn't, you were actually set up as a dealer prior to that. You might not have had him on your website, but you were a dealer for him before that. So
I'll bet you over the past year, without question, I am in the top 1% of all Reconyx dealers. I promise you, the UPS man is dropping off cases of Reconyx cameras at my house weekly. And I would, if Reconyx has a bigger dealer, I'd like to know who it is. Because I bet I rival Bass Pro Shop, the number of cameras I send out, Reconyx cameras.
All right. Well, but I hope that answers your question. Again, it was a good question. But I think if you filter through some episodes after 23, I don't know what episodes they were. We actually talked about Reconyx reaching out to us and trying to make it right. Nobody's perfect. but we hope that they're a better company and because of it. But I have no doubt it's because of our fans that connected the dots for us and got some attention.
Yeah, and with real world, we deal with customer issues too, but I don't think, and we may miss an email or a phone call or something like that, but there is no way that we miss a dozen from the same person. And so, we kind of see it from both sides.
I got a email in the real world. I haven't told you this. I think it was 2 days ago, and some guy sent a snarky email using the F-bomb. I counted them 7 times, complaining about the UPS charges that were on there, screaming at us about how bad we are because of it. And even somebody that talked to me like that, I still responded tried to be graceful. I actually shared a scripture with him, said we don't appreciate that kind of language. From this point forward, I will not answer emails that have that in it, and gave him an explanation that we don't set UPS prices. We're our hands are handcuffed with it, but
We don't make a penny on UPS.
right,
Well,
but
we don't set that charge.
even with someone chewing me out and MFing me about 7 times, I still answered it even when I shouldn't have. So, talking about customer service though, real quick, I'm going to share a video in just a second. Quiet Cat has done a lot as far as new product development, especially with supply chain. A lot of our customers that are looking at bikes have questions about what bike they want. And this virtual showroom that they've launched out is a fantastic tool for you guys to reach out to their people, talk about what kind of terrain, where you want to go. So I'm going to play that video. I encourage you, if you're looking at an electric bike, whether or not it's a Quiet Cat or not, reach out to these guys in the virtual showroom and they'll help you point you in the right direction.
Hey, Spinks from Quiet Cat here in our virtual showroom space where you can connect with a product expert and learn all about our bikes, our accessories, and what makes Quiet Cat the leader in off-road electric bikes. Schedule a live session today by clicking in the link below or going to quietcat.com/meet.
All right, Don, well, we're going to move on to question number 3 for tonight. By the way, those people listening and watching, Don has a new buck behind him in the frame. We're going to show some pictures of it, and this buck that he's got behind him is near and dear to my heart. I'm gonna enjoy Don sharing the story of this one with everybody. So just make sure you stay tuned at the end of the podcast for Don's buck profile story. So here you should be able to see the question number 3, Don.
Yeah, question number 3 comes from Kelly Shanley from Allegan, Michigan. I hope I said that city right. Allegan, Michigan. Anyway, Don and Terry, there are a lot of feelings and opinions on smaller soybean plots and how to mitigate browse pressure so the plants can become established before having a failure. Lots of guys would recommend not even messing with beans at smaller acreage, say under 4 to 5 acres, because of this reason. Number 1, why is it important to make an extra effort of getting soybean plot to maturity and having those pods available late season and through winter? What does a soybean plant offer that a fall blend like Deadly does and does not? What have both of you seen and used as a very effective way to eliminate browse on establishing bean plots? My Lorgonite, electric fence, drilling into standing vegetation, etc. How long would you suggest leaving an electric fence up before removing and allowing deer in to browse? I'm located in a high deer density area in southwest Michigan and have additional acres of clover available, as well as a section that will go to Deadly Dozen in August to add to the variety of the food. Thanks for the great podcast and content. Well, we get a lot of questions about soybean plots and establishment of soybean plots. And, there's really no hard set rules when it comes to this, because in an area like where I'm at, where the deer density is really low, I can get away with planting a half acre of soybeans. other places, you get into places with heavy deer populations in Michigan, where Kelly's from, places in Iowa where you could plant a 40-acre field and they almost get wiped out. So it's got to do more with deer density than anything. But there is some things we can do. Now, I'm just going to say right for the record, I have no experience whatsoever with electric fences. A lot of our customers do. They swear by them. I just don't need them. If I was going to put an electric fence up, if I went to the trouble to install that fence, I would probably leave it up until right before hunting season, take it down maybe a week ahead of hunting season. If you're going to do it, you might as well go all the way and, just keep it up. He was also asking about what the soybeans provide that the other plants won't. Well, it's the protein, in the oil content. In the wintertime, there are very few high protein plants available. The deer are living basically on browse. Depending on where they're at, if they're in ag country, they're living on wasted grain out in an ag field that the combine might have missed, or an unharvested field. Any acorns they might find that are left. But that time of the year, in the wintertime, quality food sources are really scarce, and there's nothing going to be available that's going to compete with a soybean in terms of protein content. But I think probably the big draw for soybeans is that oil, and that's why Real World's got has selected for high oil content. That oil is fat. Basically, it's fat, and it helps that animal to stay warm. And I'll just throw in a little plug here for Real World soybeans. I think there's some people out there that bash them, saying it's just another ag bean. Well, my reply is this. This was our 14th spring of selling food plot seed. Soybeans have been there since day one, and for the 14th straight year, our soybean sales have increased. And we have from day one, we have challenged people to plant those Real World soybeans next to any other soybean out there. And we say all the time, the toughest bag for us to sell a customer is the first one. Because if we can sell him the first one and he'll plant it next to anything else out there, forage beans, it doesn't matter, whatever you come across, we've got a customer. So, I hope that answers all your questions regarding soybeans, Kelly. Did I miss anything, Terry? Or?
No, I think the first question was, what does beans give you that Deadly doesn't, or clover or something doesn't provide you? I'd also say keeping that food above snow in areas like Michigan, that you get good ground cover and frozen ground. Those beans will be up out of that, not down in the mud, whatnot. But then I agree with you. Joe Bosing, our buddy from Indiana, he gave me an electric fence set that he ended up not using anymore, and I have never used it. If somebody comes to you and says what you can and can't do with no understanding of your deer density or your property, that should raise a red flag immediately. But I will tell you that we could have made, over the years, a ton of money by selling soybeans in a half-acre bag.
Yep.
But we chose not to, because we want to try to educate customers to get soybeans to stay established less than 1 acre. It's tough, and it's not saying you can't do it, but it's just tough. You're going to have a game plan on it, and that might be something as simple as a lot of surrounding alfalfa. That's what I get away with. They'll go to the alfalfa and take the browse pressure off. Timing when the alfalfa is cut based on when you're planting, fencing, other chemicals. There's all different ways. I think that you have to keep continuing to try different things to see what works on your farm with what's there. And, getting them established. You said a long time ago in one of the, maybe it was a plug for this podcast, that the best thing about a spring food plot is if it fails, you still can do a fall.
Yep.
People think that if they browse off soybeans and they don't get established, you failed. But yeah, it stinks that you have to go back and plant something different. But you just did a fabulous thing by putting high nutrition in an area, bringing the deer to your property in a time when they're, having fawns, taking care of fawns. you're providing that good food source through the spring. Just because they mowed them off, you're still getting them to come to you. You've done a great thing. Don't think of it as a failure. You just have to adapt the plan for the next year.
Yeah, and Kelly asked about tips for establishing using Milorganite, electric fence, or whatever. I'll tell you one thing that's worked good for me. When we had those lease properties, Terry, and I was pulling my tractor all the way and planting those food plots, and that area had more deer than what I've got, where I live on my home farm. But what I'd like to do is no-till soybeans into standing vegetation, and especially rye. And I know a lot of people that follow me on social media have seen the tractor rig that I had, where it had a loader bucket on the front that was detachable, and I would take that loader bucket off, and then I custom made a sprayer with two little wing booms that came out. It was 10-foot total width, and then I had a 10-foot drill I pulled behind it. So I would spray right in front of my tractor, and then I would plant right behind it, and I would spray through rye or whatever the crop was and kill it. And then immediately I'm drilling in all in one pass. And that really helped hide that young bean plant, because you run over that rye or whatever, you're not really knocking it down. You do some, but for the most part, it still remains standing. But now it's been sprayed with a herbicide and it's going to die. So as that plant is dying, the soybean is growing and coming to life. And for a period of time, that little soybean plant is hid down in that vegetation, and it really helps hide it from browsing deer. They would much rather be out in a farmer's ag field where they don't have to stick their head down in a bunch of dead weeds to eat them little soybean plants, and that worked really well.
Yeah. All right, great question. We'll move on to question number 4 from Andy in West Virginia.
All right, Andy's from Rachel, West Virginia, and he says when deer go into bedding, they often J-hook the downwind side of the bedding to bed using the wind to their advantage. My question is, how often do you see bucks J-hook out of the bedding to get downwind of the food source, or just get downwind to the direction they want to go? Thanks for all the great information you two put out. Well, Andy, that's a great question. What I typically notice with mature bucks is, he's got his bed, and then when he's laying there all day, and when he gets up, he pretty much knows where he wants to go. He's most of the time he's getting up and he's going to a food source. If he doesn't have the wind to his advantage, he's going to stay in that bed till it's dark. And he's just not going to get up and commit suicide just because he wants to go feed. He'll wait another hour or so until it's dark, then he'll go do it. And when he heads to that food source, he wants a quartering nose wind is ideal. But as he's heading to that food source, he wants the wind coming from that food source towards him. And a lot of times a buck will run the downwind edge of that food source, with a quartering nose wind, and then hook out into the field or whatever it is. They do that, but the big lesson here is that if that buck does not have a wind that he thinks is to his advantage, he's just going to wait till dark. And I think that's what a lot of hunters miss. They think they've got the wind to their advantage, and yeah, they do. But since they have it to their advantage, the buck's not even going to move in daylight. He's just going to lay there till it's dark.
Yep. I don't know how to even say it, but when I started understanding after, watching you and talking with you, when I finally it clicked, and it's something so easy that you think, why in the world did I never get this before? Your hunting experience will change drastically as soon as you accept that wind is the most pivotal part of this whole process. We talk about lack of human intrusion, but good grief, the wind is that's just a continuation of it. And I still believe with all my heart after this process and this journey that I'm still learning. Whenever you see those magical days in the woods where all the bucks are going nuts and everything, there's days like that every day. It's just you're not in the right spot where that wind is doing what it needs to be doing for that specific spot. So when it finally clicks for you guys, and I promise you, it's just when it clicks and understanding at different points in time of the year and the season how bucks are using the wind to protect themselves. And as you said in the master classes several times, you don't go to bed without locking your front door. You know,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
there it's just kind of these bucks have learned to live with shotgun hunters driving, people shooting from the road, who knows what. They've learned to live through, 4, 5, 6 seasons, and the reason they're still alive is they're smart. So,
Well, I think that's why it's so critical how you lay out a property, because if you have the opportunity to design a property any way you want, and there's always going to be some limiting factors, everybody takes into consideration the things that they can see. They know that they've got a neighbor to, let's say, the north that's going to kill everything, so they want to pull the deer away from him. But what's really critical when you design a plan for a property is considering wind direction, access, and wind direction. Really key. I've got properties I hunt where I can only hunt a property with an east wind, and I've got stands there. There's years I don't get to hunt that property at all. But when you start trying to push the wind and take chances with the wind, that's a recipe for failure, because you're not only failing on that hunt, you're ruining the property for when the conditions are right. So it all hinges on the wind.
absolutely. All right. Well, I'm going to ask for some patience from all of our listeners that are listening on, watching on YouTube. But for those people who are listening on MTech or that need to get a piece of paper and write down contact information for Don's seminar tour here coming up next month, I don't think we're going to spend as much time this week, but patience appreciated as Don runs down through this real quick and updates us on his schedule.
Yeah, so all I'm going to do is give you the date, the town and state where I'm going to be, and the phone number that you need to call.
Get your pencil ready.
So on July 13th, I'm going to be in Hamilton, Indiana. The number to call, 567-210-8919. On July 14th, I'm going to be in Fredonia, Pennsylvania. The number to call, 724-475-1111. On July 15th, I'm going to be in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania. The number to call there, 814-427-4243. On July 16th, I'm going to be in Oakland Mills, Pennsylvania. The number there, 717-463-3060. July 18th, I'm going to be in Penn Yan, New York. Number there, 585-554-0200. July 20th, I'm going to be in Canton, New York. The number there, 315-386-2750. July 21st, I'm going to be in Detroit, Maine. Number there, 802-458-3916. July 22nd, I'm going to be in Sheldon, Vermont. 802-933-2277. July 23rd, I'm going to be in Canajoharie, New York. Number there, 518-859-3310. Folks, please do not reach out to me, because I am not responsible for any of the details at these events. All I've got is a time that I'm showing up. Any other questions, you need to call the numbers that I put out there. I think there's going to be food at every one of these events. There may be a charge for the food or whatever. Real world products will be available, so you can save some shipping costs, and then you won't have to send Terry a nasty email and get him all fired up. So save
Use the
yourself some
F-bomb. I'm not answering you.
going to be talking about ultimate whitetail nutrition and food plots, and then I will have a question and answer session at the end of each seminar, and we'll talk about anything you want to talk about. You can ask me about politics, religion, whatever, and I'm not going to refuse to answer. Now, that's probably sounds like a challenge. There's probably people out there thinking of what are they going to put me on the spot about. But
if you're
look
going
forward
to
to seeing
this,
you there.
if you're going to this, don't call me and ask me for ideas of things to put Don on the spot about. I keep those teed up for when we're on the podcast and I can get him all wound up. All right, Don. Well, I tell you what, we're already right at pushing an hour, so let's table our fifth question tonight because I want to spend some time talking about your big buck hanging behind you. We're going to splice in some pictures as you start talking about it, but and then we'll save the fifth question that was saved for tonight for when we come back here in 2 weeks with a normal podcast.
All right. Well, the buck behind me, Terry, I killed in 2019. That was the year that you and I filmed Mel as a 3-year-old out of the blind. Mel was a 3-year-old on the farm this summer, or that summer, and he was in a bachelor group with this buck behind me. If you watch the Mel video, and you're going to see a buck with a flyer coming off one G2 tine in velvet out in the beans with Mel that summer, that's the buck behind me. He was 6.5 years old that fall when I shot him, and he was actually, we used a photo of him in a real world soybean ad the fall before he broke his foot, and he was actually, his rear hoof was turned out to the side. I don't know if he got it caught in a fence or what he did, but somehow he broke that, and Kyle Harmon from Team Radical was hunting at my place and had his wife here. I think they was trying to shoot a coal buck, if I remember right. And this buck came out into the soybeans, and he was looking really bad. He was looking thin, and he had the scours, and he looked bad. And Kyle wanted to know if I wanted him to shoot him, and I said, let's give him a chance. Let's see what happens. Because the next year he was going to be 6 years old. Well, it so happened that at 6 years old, the rack behind me, he scored 167, but it was probably, since he had been 4 years old, it was 3 racks in a row that was right there about the 170 mark. We always called him the fork tine buck because he always had forked G2s. They were short G2s, but they were both forked way down deep. And so we called him the fork G2 buck, and he was, pretty much a homebody. He was here, every fall. But when he reached 6 years old, I knew it was time to get him out. And so that morning on November 4th, I finally got a crack. You and I tried to kill him in October. And
I had just gone home. I think I'd only been home one day. I was there hunting him for about 4 days, and I'd just gone home, and you had shot him, I think, the next morning.
Yeah, he was a pretty tough critter, and then the rut came around. He started moving. I shot him and called my buddy Al Foster to help track, and he didn't go less than 100 yards, and we found him, pretty quick. But just very typical of a lot of the bucks that are on this farm, that this is about where they top out at, close to, from 160 to 170. I get a lot of bucks that top out right there. But, I shot him on November 4th. Scored 167 on a morning hunt. The very next day on November 5th, I filled my second Illinois tag with a buck that scored 168. And that was on a totally different farm several miles away. But I filled my 2 tags that year with 2 bucks that scored right under 170, and had 3-year-old Mel running around that scored 215, 216 at the same time. So pretty interesting season.
Yeah, go back and watch the velvet footage of the Mel video, and you get a really good look at the what we call the fork time buck, which is the buck behind Don. ginormous body. I mean, he had really his neck and head were really, really big, even though he got really sick. And I don't have a very good memory. I know that same year, Kyle had brought Jen over to kill a cull buck. But if my memory serves me right, Kyle was just wanting some late season footage because it had snow on the ground, and I think that's why
Right.
he was there. I don't even
Yep.
think he had a bow with him. But for those of you who have seen some of our print ads, the fork time buck was the one eating in that soybean field with the snow covering. And just like the question we had earlier, what does soybeans give us over a deadly dozen? There was probably 5 inches of snow on the ground, and he was going through eating that high protein. And I have no doubt that that's what helped him recover from that injury, was a
Yep.
good food source to get him through that hard winter. Because if I remember right, that was a fairly hard winter you guys had that year.
Right. Yeah, we had some snow and cold weather that year for sure. I've got some shed antlers off this buck. I don't remember how many antlers I have from him, but I remember finding one of them right here where my new house sits, right here by my shed.
Yep.
And I couldn't believe it was just laying right there. But so within a few feet of where I'm at right now, I found one of his shed antlers.
Cool story, cool buck, old buck. But the interesting thing about it is us documenting over the years this buck in different times, different places, different pictures, but then watching him recover from that injury. These animals are so tough if you give them a chance with food. And I think that's the biggest kind of kickback to our questions about supplemental feeding, and then the soybeans and all this work that we're putting in there. You're really giving them a chance when the stress, pressure, or even an injury. If somebody's using mechanical broadheads, you never know. But no, I'm just kidding. But yeah, giving them a chance. I think that's just part of the total package that we're trying to put together with these habitat projects.
Yeah, and back to his broken foot. When I ended up shooting him a year later, that foot had healed with the hoof sticking straight out to the side. It was almost like he was, instead of walking on the bottom of his hoof, he was almost walking on the side of one side of his hoof.
Yep.
And kind of limping along, but it wasn't slowing him down any the morning I shot him. I'll say that.
He was still doing his thing.
Yep.
All right. Well, we want to thank everybody for the questions. Please keep them coming in. We are going to take a break with no questions next week because we'll have a full, long episode to publish with the Lester's Feet raffle on July 4th. Again, ticket sales are going to close the 26th. So you people listening today on Monday, today's your last day. Otherwise, if somebody still wants to donate, they can reach out to the foundation. And Don reminded everybody last week, and I probably got 10 messages this week of people wanting us to contact families. We appreciate and we love the fact that this podcast is like a center hub to network with people in your community. But people also have to understand, due to the size that this thing has gotten to, we have to follow some protocol, and that is not going to be reaching out blindly to families. We need families to start a paper trail and submit a very small, simple form on our website to start the process. So while you guys are doing a great job putting us in touch with families, that's great, but please understand, because of discrimination policies and all this stuff that these lawyers have to get involved in now, we need the family or someone representing the family to fill out the paperwork, and it's a very short form on our website before we can talk to them. So just please understand that. We appreciate everybody's patience. But other than that, Don, unless somebody's in Destin area this coming week that wants to go fishing, I don't have anything else.
Nope. I'm going to get some cameras out this week. I got Steve Shields and our website guy, Bruce Carroll, coming to my house later in the week for some video work. We kind of hinted on the video project that's going to be released here soon. And so they're going to be here. But hopefully when we talk next time, I'll have a bunch of cameras up.
Yeah, there's we're not done with special surprises for the year. We got some other news that's coming in the near future too about how we're trying to expand and help other people. So we're not done with just your new website. There's going to be a lot of other things that we're gonna release here over the summer. So we're excited about that.
Right. You're going to find people are going to see our true hearts and our true character, I think, with some of the things coming down the pike, Terry.
Yep, I think so. All right. Hope not to see anyone in the Dick's Sporting Goods parking lot tomorrow. With that, I'll let you turn it over and close us out.
Well, thanks for supporting Lester's Feed, everyone. We just feel extremely blessed that we're able to use the platform God has given us, and I personally feel extremely blessed that Terry agreed to do this podcast because the Lester's Feet thing is really Terry's doing. I've got a very small part in it. This guy, he's probably one of the busiest people I know. Without a doubt, he's one of the busiest people, if not the busiest. And yet he still finds time to help others. And I just hope you all keep that in mind. He's not making a penny off of that. And just, honored to have him a part of this. So God bless everyone. See you on the 4th. And hopefully one of you ends up with a brand new Chevy truck.
Have a good week.
Chasing Giants has been brought to you by Osseo Camo, Via Farm Real Estate Company, 360 Hunting Blinds, Victory Chevrolet, Real World Wildlife Products, Matthews Archery, Novix Tree Stands, Gingerich Tree Farm, WildlifeFarming.com, Quiet Cat, and Vortex Optics. Thanks for listening, and tune in next week for another episode of Chasing Giants.